Thank you for attending the CED Greentech Fortress Power presentation today. I am Michael Gibson. I'm the East Coast Sales Manager with Fortress Power. The other person that handles your account is Alex Lepore. He is our West Coast Sales Manager. He will not be attending today's session, but I wanted to mention him because he and I are the two sales representatives that handle CED Greentech. I wanted to let you know in advance that I will be looking up because my other monitor is right above you. So if you see my eyes looking up, don't worry. So today we're going to talk about advanced lithium storage made simple with Fortress Power and CED Greentech. Fortress Power Company, a little bit about us. We are headquarters in the United States, and where our headquarters is right outside of Philadelphia in a small town called Southampton, PA. We manufacture the safe lithium iron phosphate battery technology for both residential and commercial applications. If you look to the right, you will see our facility. We actually have, solar array on top, some other solar stuff in there. So inside of our facility, we do the R&D, sales, and logistics. Our facility is 30,000 square feet. So again, we are located in Southampton, Pennsylvania. We do our research and development out of that facility. We do our sales and logistics. So if you wanted to contact myself or contact Alex, that's where we will actually be sitting at. Our application engineers, as well as our chief technology officer, we all sit in that location. In addition to this facility, Fortress Power also has two warehouses. We have one warehouse in California. We have another warehouse in Florida, and hot off the press, we have opened up another warehouse in Texas. So right now we actually have three warehouse facilities, one in California, one in Texas, and another in Florida. So this is how we service the country and actually service everywhere. Fortress Power, we have installs in the United States, Canada, Central Caribbean, South America. So we literally have installs all over the globe. We are the exclusive lithium battery supplier for SEPTA, which is a transportation company located here in Philadelphia. And we actually are partnered with Hydro-Quebec for batteries as well, and that's up in Canada. To go back to a bullet point, we were founded in 2016 by solar investors and solar veterans. So Fortress Power has been in existence since 2016. Just a little overview again of batteries and how they fit into what you do day to day. So you have this grid tied battery. So to back up your facility, batteries are used for when you lose grid. Batteries allow you to store the energy that comes from your solar panels, and it's more efficient than running a generator. As you may or may not know, when you run a generator, you have to have fuel. You also are emitting fumes and things into the environment. So batteries allow you to back up your system in a more sustainable area. Also with batteries, you can use them for self-supply. You install PV where the grid prohibits feedback, and now you can use your energy storage system to store that energy and use it for your own personal benefit. Also, it maximizes your PV production. Energy storage allows you, again, to store the power that your panels are producing. And if you're unable to sell that power back to the grid, now you have the ability to use your stored energy in a manner that makes sense for you. Also, energy storage allows you to save money on your electric bill by charging the batteries at off-peak times and discharging them during periods of peak shaving and to lower the demand. Another critical piece to the storage industry are the tax incentives and rebate programs that are available. One of the biggest programs that is run now is the 26% tax credit And that applies when you add storage to your solar system. So if you have a customer and want to take advantage of that, you would have to have solar and storage together to take advantage of that savings. Why storage? So if you take a look at this slide over here, this is a graph that comes from the Department of Energy and their analysis. And the market that Fortress plays in, you see this grid related. And if you look at this chart, you can see started in 2018 that there's just been a steady climb in growth year over year over year over year. This market sector is growing. And according to the study analysis, they're expecting 27% annual growth for grid related storage applications. What does that mean for us? That means there's plenty of growth and plenty of market for us to be able to supply. So if you look at this chart, we're right now in 2021, we are literally just hitting the tip of the iceberg. And if you can see, just in a short amount of time, in a decade, they're looking for this number to literally double. So even though we've seen great growth in the last few years, we are still charted to see even more growth in the next coming decade. North America makes up the largest market for grid-related energy storage. Why storage? One of the main reasons that we see energy storage growing is because the cost of solar has fallen so dramatically. That is because there are advances in technology that allows manufacturers to be able to make the solar panels more affordable. In addition to that, more players in the market, and the more players in the market usually allows for a rush in advancement, and that advancement allows for a rush on different technologies, what then eventually allows the cost of your solar to fall. So over the last 5 years, there's been a 20% price reduction in the solar technology. By 2029, we are expecting to see a 46% price reduction in lithium battery cells. Now, what I would say, just because you see a price reduction in battery cells, there's not always a direct correlation to manufacturer pricing, because supply and demand. So when you see that the battery cell prices are dropping, there is still a fixed resource on lithium batteries. Also, rising incentives. So you have a 26% federal income tax credit that's been extended for a few years now. So that allows people to now be able to slide some of those costs to other parties, like the government. So you can take advantage of those rebates, and that allows you to save some money. Also, statewide incentives. So you got the SGIP program out there on the West Coast, GMP, and other statewide rebates. So when you look that the cost is coming down, then the incentives are increases. What that does is allow for more people to want to get into storage. Another big thing is a shift in mindset. We all are well aware what happened out in Texas, where they had major outages, grid instability because of the weather. Well, when you have those type of events, what it does is put into the forefront of your mind, I may need an alternative to be able to get energy. So what that does is allow people to say, I have solar. What can I do to maximize my solar? So maximizing your solar normally means adding storage, because PV production is high during the day, makes sense. The sun is out, but at night, you have to take that PV production and put it somewhere. Another reason, high emphasis on renewables. When you look at what's going on around the country, and you see all these statewide incentives, you may ask the question, why are they incentivizing people to do renewable energy? Well, if you've been in the United States in the last 20 to 30 years, you really don't see any power plants going up. You do not see that at all. You don't see any investment in what we call traditional coal. So what this does is allow utility companies to use other people's energy. When I say other people's energy, each home, if you think about it, has the potential to supply energy to the grid for the utility. It is much easier to use and leverage energy that's being produced by the public than actually to build a new power plant. So that is part of the reasons why there are rises, incentives, and also we care about the environment, we care about what's going on. The other issue is the political administration charge. Each administration has different plans, and this new administration is looking to invest more in renewables. Again, part of the reason is we're not building new plants, and you can use solar as a means to augment that cost. So there's many different reasons. Again, it's the affordability, the cost of solar has come down, there's been a rise in incentives, and lastly, mind shift changes. Next, we are going to go over our Fortress Power product line. Some of you may not know that we have 3 different distinct product lines, and I say 3 because to the left you have our LFP 5 and our LFP 10. This is an LFP 5 battery if you haven't seen it. We have an LFP 10 battery. These were our first products that we went to market with, primarily with CED when it comes to stocking and ordering. We focus on our eVault battery, which is the largest battery that we offer, which is an 18.5 kilowatt hour battery. The next battery that we focus on when it comes to stocking and CED is the eFlex battery, which is a 5.4 kilowatt hour battery. We do not neglect sales of our LFP 5 and LFP 10, and some of the CED branch locations actually still order these batteries. But if you were going to be a new stocking distributor, if you didn't have a need for these batteries, we would highly recommend going with the eVault battery and the eFlex battery. So because we focus on the eVault and the eFlex battery, I'm going to further discuss those units. The eFlex and the eVault battery, what are the main differences between the original batteries that we had? The eFlex and the eVault battery are both relay-based battery management systems. That's the brain of the batteries, and they are prismatic cells. So to look deeper into the eVault battery, which is on the left here, the eVault is 18.5 kilowatt hour battery. It's one of the largest batteries that you will find on the market today in a single unit. That battery is scalable up to 220 kilowatt hours. You also have local monitoring through the LCD display. This is very popular with the eVault battery. It clearly shows you the state of charge. It shows you the current and the power of the battery. So this comes standard on the eVault battery, and then it gives good visual. It's a nice design. We refer to it a lot of times as a mini fridge because literally it's about the size of a mini fridge, although it's heavier than a mini fridge. The eVault battery comes with wheels, so it can easily be slid into place. So it makes it nice to sit in the garage and other areas. And then you can just put the feet down to have it be more stable. In addition to being a wonderful size battery, it also is the largest SGIP approved battery. So out there in the West Coast area, this battery is listed on the SGIP program, and you can use this battery to get incentive. The other battery, which is our newest battery, is our eFlex battery. The eFlex is a 5.4 kilowatt hour battery. It comes in an IP65 aluminum enclosure, which means it's outdoor rated. If you look closely here, this is not the best picture, but if you look at it, the terminals themselves where you land the cables for the batteries, that is not outdoor. However, this enclosure is. Why do I bring that up? Because if you want to sit this battery outside, you will need to put some type of covering over top of the enclosure so that the terminals of the batteries are not exposed. Like its big brother, the eFlex is also scalable up to 80 kilowatt hour. In addition to being scalable, it has a versatile applications that it can be used for. It could be used in telecom, railway, and marine. In addition to that, it can be placed in different arrangements. So this battery can be stacked on the floor, this battery can be stacked on the wall, and this battery can be shelf racked. What's nice about this unit, it really has a lot of versatility and has opened up many more markets to us than the Evo. Although the Evo is a very nice battery, some people don't want to put the battery into the basement because they don't have a basement, or some people want to be able to handle the battery by themselves. So the eFlex 5.4 kilowatt hour battery with its versatile, flexible installs works very nice for us. If you look closely at the enclosure over here, you'll see ridges. And this is like a passive heat sink inside this battery. So it helps with some of the high temperature that you may face from time to time when using batteries. And so again, the two primary batteries that we focus on with CED are the eVault battery and the eFlex battery. Both are relay-based BMS and have prismatic cells. Two types of battery management systems. So as I mentioned to you prior, we have a total of 4 batteries that we go to market with. So what are the differences between the two batteries? The main difference is the BMS technology. The battery management system, as I told you before, is the brains of the battery. This is the thing that gives the battery the ability to scale. So our original 2 batteries that we went to market with, the LFP5 and the LFP10 batteries, was a MOSFET-based BMS design. There's nothing wrong with a MOSFET-based BMS design. We use the MOSFET-based BMS design, but it doesn't have the full functionality of the contactor-based digital processor BMS that we now have. So if you look over here to the right, you can see that the biggest difference is it allows you to communicate with inverters. It allows you to communicate between units in parallel and remote monitoring. So the main difference between our older generation of battery and our newest generation of battery is that you can see one has a superior BMS that gives us more functionality. It gives us ability to work in more and more markets, and I will discuss that later on in the presentation. Also, we changed the cell type of our battery. So we went from a cylindrical type cell and we moved to a prismatic cell. So again, for CED, our focus is the eVault and the eFlex batteries. Fortress Power Products, as we continue, we look at the cell types. As I told you before, the first product offering we had was the cylindrical cells. There was nothing wrong with cylindrical cells, but as you can see, cylindrical cells, they lack in a few areas where the prismatic cell kind of shines. So thermal stability, the prismatic cell has great thermal stability, and it also has longer longevity. If you look at the longevity of the prismatic cell, which is the life of the battery, you'll notice that it has 3 stars and the cylindrical only has 1 star. Again, not a bad design, it's just that the prismatic cell is a superior design product. Also durability, the prismatic cell is more durable. So at Fortress, we focus on safety. So we have a safe prismatic cell now inside of our batteries. In addition, we have a more robust or superior battery management system inside of our batteries as well. So again, just to go back 1 slide, 2 slides, Fortress Power Products, our eVault battery is a relay-based BMS system, and it has a prismatic cell. This is the battery management system advantages, just to go over it again. And you don't have to rush to take notes because these slides will be given to you after the presentation. Going through the technical specification of our whole product suite, if you look over here, I'm going to start to the right. We do have a 24-volt battery, but this is we use in specialized cases. So it is available, but it's not something that we primarily push. So we start here with our 5K 48-volt offering, still available, but primarily we start from the left side. So if you look at the eVault battery, it is 18.5 kilowatt hour. So it is a 360 amp hour battery. The eFlex is a 105 amp hour battery. And then the most important thing I want you to notice is right here, the voltage. The batteries that we offer are 48 volt. That is the battery that we offer. So if you have a 48 volt hybrid inverter, most likely we will be able to pair with that battery. Going down again, I'm gonna go to the parallel stacking, and this is where you see the major difference between our older product offering and our newer product offering. You see here, if you look at the LFP10 and the LFP5, you'll notice that you only could stack 2 and 3 batteries respectively. But when you jump over to our newest product offering, you'll notice that you're able to parallel stack these batteries. You can go up to 12 for the eVault, and you go up to 15 for the eFlex. And these are some of the things that make a big difference in our batteries compared to other people battery offering. In addition to being able to stack, as I mentioned before, it allows you to be able to communicate with the units. And that, I say, is a big thing going into the future, to be able to get data from the batteries. Also, our warranty on all of our batteries are 10 years inside the United States, up to 6,000 cycles. We do have a 5-year warranty when you get outside of the United States. Next, we are going to discuss our battery technology comparison. We're going to first focus on the lithium battery. When you focus on the lithium batteries, there's multiple types of battery chemistry inside the lithium family. You have the lithium ferro iron phosphate, which is the chemistry that Fortress Power use. And then you have the lithium ion nickel magnesium cobalt phosphate, which is used by Tesla, LG Chem, and Panasonic, just to mention some of their batteries. Then you have the hummus product, which uses the lithium polymer battery. When we think of the lithium polymer battery, generally that's the type of lithium cell that you find inside of your cell phone. So to focus on the 2 main chemistries inside of the lithium family, we go to safety. Lithium phosphate is very safe chemistry. It's a very safe chemistry. In addition, it's ecologically friendly, meaning that you can actually recycle most of the components, if not all of the components, of the lithium phosphate battery. When you go to the nickel magnesium cobalt, you have more trouble trying to recycle the nickel, the magnesium, and the cobalt. You can't really recycle those. But the lithium phosphate chemistry, you have the ability to recycle pretty much the whole battery. Also, life cycles. Another big thing about the lithium phosphate versus the nickel magnesium cobalt is the life cycles. If you look at the life cycles for the LiFePO chemistry, you will notice that it goes to about 6,000 cycles. And when you look at the life cycles of the nickel magnesium cobalt, it's around 3,000 cycles. The hummus is at 1,500. So the longest lasting cycles in the market in the lithium battery chemistry space is going to be your LiFePO 4 technology, or LFP, whichever way you like to describe it. Now, there are some instances where the nickel magnesium cobalt benefits and shine. One of those is energy density. You actually can put more energy in a smaller footprint using the nickel magnesium cobalt. That is primarily why you see that technology in a lot of our car manufacturer companies. So when you go to a lot of the hybrid cars, the batteries that you see inside of those cars most likely will be nickel magnesium cobalt, because you can put more energy in a smaller footprint. Typically in the home, you will see both technologies. You will see the nickel magnesium cobalt, and you will see the LiFePO 4 chemistry inside the home. The main difference is the thermal stability and the life cycles. So you're getting something that's more stable, and you're getting something that lasts longer, more than twice the time of the other chemistries. I mentioned before the thermal stability, and if at your leisure, if you wanted to have a little fun, you can click on this link and it will take you to this nail test video. And basically, the point of this nail test video is just showing you the difference between the chemistry. I mentioned before that the LFP chemistry is a more safe chemistry. And what does that mean to you? So in this nail test, what it does is it literally drives a nail through cells. And what you will see is on the right, you have the nickel magnesium cobalt. And as the nail is being driven through that, you will notice that there are some sparks, a little fire display going on here. And on the left side, you have the LFP chemistry and you will notice you don't see the sparks of the fire. Now, this is not saying that one is going to blow up in your house. I'm not advocating that. I'm not saying that. So don't take this the wrong way. It's just showing you the thermal stability and is higher on the lithium phosphate battery. So it's generally thought of as a more safe chemistry. And this test just kind of verifies it. So it's taking, again, a LFP cell and comparing it to an MS nickel magnesium cobalt cell and driving a nail through it, and you see visually the difference. So that is something that you can look up at your leisure, but this is why we mentioned the thermal stability of the cell. Comparing different battery technologies or chemistries. When you look at different batteries, again, we get compared a lot to the flooded lead acid batteries, believe it or not, because those were the batteries that were first on the market. And they've been around probably the longest inside of people's homes. So when you go to look at these chemistries, you will notice a few things. Round trip efficiency. If you look starting at the LFP battery chemistry, you notice that it has a higher round trip efficiency with the battery. So if you compare it to other technologies, it's the most efficient battery chemistry on the market. Also, when you compare it to life cycles, outside of this nickel iron over here, it has the highest life cycle. 6,000 cycles versus basically 2,800 cycles, and you can see it goes down. So if someone had an existing flooded lead acid battery bank, the cost of the lithium battery would be more, and that makes sense because this battery is lasting longer. This battery actually has a higher efficiency, but more importantly than that, it has a longer just lifespan. If you look at the lifespan of your AGM flooded lead acid batteries. So normally people get sticker shock sometimes when they're saying, hey, I want to change my existing battery bank. But in changing your existing battery bank to the lithium technology, there is going to be a higher cost. But if you look at the years that the battery is projected to last you, you'll notice that there's no comparison. The lithium technology lasts way longer than the flooded lead acid technology. The more accurate way to judge a battery, though, is actually the energy throughput of the battery. The energy throughput is the total amount of energy a battery can be expected to store and deliver over its lifetime. And if you look at the lithium phosphate chemistry, you will notice that it has basically twice the energy throughput of the other technology, and there's really no comparison with the flooded lead acid. So what does that mean? The cost per kilowatt hour, when you actually extrapolate and do the math, the lithium phosphate technology has great cost per kilowatt hours, and that's what makes the most sense to the customer. So sometimes you got to take them past what I would call the sticker shock and take them to the reality of saying, if you actually look at the total investment, the value of this, you will see that in the lithium phosphate batteries, you get great value. In addition, maintenance free. There was no maintenance when it comes to the lithium phosphate batteries. I want to point this chart out, and I put it in here today because you have a lot of people that have lithium batteries, and they always say, well, why don't you have 10,000 cycles? Why don't you have 10,000 cycles? Other people that are in lithium phosphate in the same chemistry as yours have a higher cycle count. The reason why we don't do that, we're more conservative in our approach when we count our cycle and look at the warranty. So if you take a look at this chart, you will see that the red line represents 50% depth of discharge, and the blue line is 80% depth of discharge. So our batteries are warranted for 10 years at 80% depth of discharge. And if you look at this LFP cycle life versus depth of discharge chart, you will notice at 6,000 cycles that this battery will last. Now, some people do warrant the battery for 10,000 cycles, but that's really not realistic in terms of being able to achieve it. Not saying that it can't happen, but realistically at 80% depth of discharge, this chart is showing you that you will be able to get to the 6,000 cycles, and that is the reason why we warrant our batteries for 6,000 cycles at 80% depth of discharge. And if you notice, if you go to 100% depth of discharge, look at the life cycles. It drops pretty drastically. So lithium phosphate batteries literally can be discharged faster. That's not a problem. But if you discharge it faster, you're just shortening the cycle life of the battery. So that's something that you need to make the customer aware. If you discharge this battery like on the rate of a flooded lead acid battery, you will notice that this discharge rate will go out to a lot farther in cycles. But in generally, most of the lithium phosphate chemistries are designed to be discharged at 80% depth of discharge, 6,000 cycles, 10-year warranty. That's pretty much an industry standard. But next, we're going to move to design guide for PV and storage. And this is where all the fun happens. And normally and typically, this is where most of the questions come from. So the first thing you must decide when designing a system or figure out from the consumer, is it AC coupled or is it DC coupled? If you look at this, AC coupled application solutions are usually when you're retrofitting an existing PV system. And for new installs that require module level rapid shutdown. So if you take the PV inverter that's existing, typically to install a battery, you would have to put a hybrid inverter charger in conjunction with a battery. So some of those systems that have, solar edge inverters out in the market, this is the common question that we get at Fortress Power. Can you work with a solar edge inverter? The question is yes. The answer to that question is yes if we are AC coupled. Being AC coupled to that solution allows us to be able to pair with that inverter. You just have to get a hybrid inverter and our battery, and you can basically use our product with a solar edge inverter. The next application will be DC coupled. So again, when you begin into the design a system, you have to figure out, am I going after a retrofit? Is this an existing photovoltaic system or is this a new installation? And if you notice in a new installation, there's less cost because you're going directly from DC to DC. So those are the two configurations that you must first ask the customer. Are you looking for an AC coupled solution? Are you looking for a DC coupled solution? Next thing, we go to our compatible inverters. Fortress Power batteries, as I mentioned before, we are 48 volt DC, and we are compatible with most of the hybrid inverters on the market. And this chart just shows you the inverters. So we are compatible with Schneider, Outback, Magnum, SMA, Solark. And if you notice these asterisks right here, these asterisks just indicate that we have closed loop communication with some of these inverters. Right now, it's the Schneider and the Solark, and we are working on the SMA. If you look to the right of this column, you will notice that our batteries can be AC coupled or DC coupled depending on the inverter. So it's not depending on the battery, it's depending on the inverter. So when you look at a Fortress battery, you can think of us as being battery agnostic. Is that an advantage? I think it is an advantage because it allows us to pair with the installer's preference. We all know that the market normally determines the type of inverters that a customer will use. So on the East Coast or the eastern half of the United States, which I handle, I see a lot of Schneider inverters. I see a lot of Solark inverters, Outback inverters. I know on the West Coast, you will see a little bit more of the Solar Edge product. Simplifying battery design. When you're designing a system, these are 4 critical steps that will help you be able to size the battery properly. So the first step is selecting the loads to be moved from the main panel to the backup panel. That's step 1. And once you decide what essential loads, what critical loads, whatever word you want to use, then you go to determining the daily usage of those backup panels, meaning how much load do I plan to call on in a given day. Next, you decide the battery bank size. And then after that, you go to estimating the daily average power of the battery. So these are the blocks that we typically use when we're beginning to size up a system for a customer. I'm going to review some design principles, and there are 3 of them that I want to go over. Design rule number 1, lithium works best at a 2-hour discharge rate. Design rule number 2, respect the max inverter output regardless of the operating mode. And design rule number 3, increasing the inverter size means increasing the minimum battery size. And I will dive more deep into this. So lithium works best when it's discharged at a 2-hour rate. And the reason that lithium works best when it's discharged at a 2-hour rate is because the voltage is more stable when comparing to a flooded lead acid battery. So it allows for more stability of the battery in the voltage range, and you won't have that battery dropping out. So when you go to a 2-hour battery chart, this is a 48-volt battery chart here, and you're looking at the discharge rates over here. If you notice, this voltage stays pretty stable from 10%, really low that, all the way till you get to 80%. This battery stays pretty, voltage stays pretty flat. When you go to a flooded lead acid battery, their depth of discharge is about 50%. You'll see a big drop off in the battery. So the voltage drop, what does that mean? It means that each load will not turn on when you see the voltage drop below a certain percentage. So lithium phosphate batteries are designed to work in a 2-hour window, or to be discharged rather. And the big advantage of the lithium battery versus the flooded lead acid battery is that you can discharge this in a 2-hour window. Now, with that being said, you are not necessary to discharge this battery in a 30-minute window. It's designed for a 2-hour window. Why do I bring this up? If you look at this bottom chart here, you will see for flooded lead acid batteries, if you look at their discharge rate, you will look at 10-hour, 20-hour, 48-hour. So lithium batteries allow you to discharge the battery quicker. The advantages of that is that you now, compared to a flooded lead acid battery bank, you actually can have less batteries because you're getting more use out of your battery. So that is the biggest advantage of the lithium battery over the flooded lead acid battery. But again, notice that the voltage stays pretty stable throughout the duration of that discharge. So the next principle, still, this correlates to the first one, is the 2-hour sizing principle. This is very, very, very important. So what does this mean? So if you were to take the 18.5 kilowatt hour battery and divide it by an 8 kW inverter, if you do that math, that works out to be 2.31 hours. So 2.5 hours, a little less, to discharge this battery. So when you're designing a battery, because lithium is designed after 2 hours, you basically want to make sure that when you're designing your system, that you're not undersizing the system. Sometimes people design the battery, they want to get the biggest inverter and they want to get the smallest battery. Well, what does that do? What it does is actually make your system not work for you. If you take the 5.4 kilowatt hour battery and you divide it by 8 kW inverter output, you will notice that you will discharge this battery in under 2 hours. Fast discharge on this battery shortens the lifespan of the battery, and not only does it do that, it also can charge that battery to shut off. So you want to make sure that you keep this principle in mind when you are sizing up a battery for your customer. Design rule number 2, respect the max inverter output regardless of the operating mode. This is very important as well, because what you will notice is that a lot of people say, well, I have an AC output, I have an 8 kW inverter, and now it can surge up to 12 kW. So therefore, I want to put 12 kW of load on my battery system. Well, when you look at a hybrid inverter, one of the most important aspects of the hybrid inverter is how is the inverter going to respond when you lose power. So you don't want to put more kW or more energy into the battery than actually can handle than the DC side of that battery. So when we size up our systems, we want to make sure that we're not putting too much load on the DC side of that battery, because when you take a solar inverter, one of the principles is that a solar inverter, and I'll go to this, is synchronous. So it's synchronized with the the grid side. So when we were to lose, if we were to lose power, this whole side goes out, and then you will be over here on the battery side of the system. Well, if there is too much load being pulled or being seen by this battery, the inverter is designed to cut off. So you have to respect that. So if you put too much load onto the system, you're actually biting your nose to spite your face, meaning that you're trying to have grid stability, but you're actually becoming more unstable by putting too much load onto the battery. So the next design principle that I want to go to, and this is probably the most important, and this all ties back to the first point. Increasing the inverter size means increasing the minimum battery size. So a rule of thumb, simple rule of thumb, put this in your memory banks. The inverter size is twice the minimum battery size. And the reason why we say twice is basically on that 2-hour discharge principle that I showed you in rule number 1. So if you have, for simple math, a 5 kW inverter, you would multiply that by 2, which would give you 2, and that will give you 10, excuse me. So 5 times 2 equals 10. So the minimum battery size you would need is essentially 10 kW. So a quick sizing tip when sizing systems for your customers is just to think of it in that exact same manner. That lithium batteries are designed to be discharged in a 2-hour window. So when I take my inverter, I'm not looking at the AC load, I'm looking at what the DC load would be on that inverter. So for instance, if we have a solar inverter that's 12 kW, the DC output on that is basically 8, and you take 8 times 2, which is 16, and that determines the minimum battery size that you will need. And I will further explain that later on. I like to think of this whole thing as the hose and bucket analogy. So if you go to the left, think of the hose. The hose is the thing that's giving you the flow. The hose gives you the flow. So the spigot and the hose determine how much water or amperage that we're going to put onto the system. Flow management is the size of the buckets and how many buckets. So in this example, think of your hybrid inverter. How much water do you want to supply? Meaning amperage. So if you have a 12 kW inverter, like a solar inverter, is giving you 50 amps. So when do you want to turn the spigot on? So the inverter allows you to determine how much water I'm allowing to flow out of the system. Okay, so you can determine when I want the battery to come on, what time of day I want the battery to come on, but the size of the inverter is ultimately telling you how much flow, because that is given the ampacity or the water to the system. The critical load panel tells you what you're washing. So one day you get up, you want to wash your car, you want to wash your house, you want to water your pool, whatever you want to do. Well, the critical load is telling you what you are washing. So when we are designing a system, think of it as flow and then flow management. So on the flow side with the spigot and the hose, the inverter is the thing that's telling you how much amperage that I'm putting on this on the system. The critical load is telling me what I am actually washing, what am I using. So back to the first point that we made, you decide what loads do I want to back up. After we figure out what loads I want to back up, then we kind of figure out what size hybrid inverter that you need to use. So critical load panel for one inverter could be 50 amps. Then you're backing up 50 amps of critical load or essential load. So that's the hose part of the analogy. The next part of the analogy is the bucket. So when we go to the bucket, so the inverter is the flow, the inverter is the spigot and the hose. The next thing to do with the water is, where am I putting this water? Well, the battery, the kW, is the size of the bucket. So you can either choose to put the water in a small bucket, or you can put the water in a big bucket. Doesn't matter. So if you wanted to kind of think of this, this is like the 5.4 kilowatt hour battery, and this is like the 18.5 kilowatt hour battery. That's the size of the bucket. Well, what is determined how much water is going into these buckets? The hybrid inverter. How many buckets or how many days of storage I need, that's the hours and the days, excuse me. So if you want additional days, you would need to size, and size your system to account for more days. So just to back up, think of this as flow, whole side, bucket, flow management. So the inverter determines the flow, the inverter determines the critical load amps. So if someone had a home and they wanted 100 amps of critical load backup, that is all determined by the hybrid inverter. What am I going to do with that ampacity, with that flow, how I'm going to store it? That's when the battery storage comes to place. The reason why I bring this analogy up, because many people will come to me and say, well, I have this square footage of a house. Let's just take a number, 3,000 square foot house. How much energy storage do I need? You could have a 10,000 square foot house. If you're only looking to back up one item, you could have a small bucket. So we determine what flow, how much ampacity am I looking to back up? But normally people always start in their mind, well, this is the size of house that I have. And I would tell you, it don't matter the size of house, it depends on what you're trying to back up or what flow you're trying to get, and then how I'm going to manage that flow. So that analogy helps me a lot. Now, how does that relate to the design principles? Well, the more water, more flow, the more buckets. The more water, the more buckets. So when we go to the minimum sizing chart that we have, keep this in mind. And this goes to inspecting or respecting the inverter output. So if you have 50 amps of inverter capacity, and that inverter capacity relates to 8 kW inverter, well, if you want to have 100 amp ampacity, that means you need 2 inverters, which means you need more buckets. So when we go to the minimum sizing guide, we'll use that 2-hour design principle that I had mentioned before. So when we do the mathematics here, you will notice that you will see an eVault battery, and I'm just using the solar one as an example, 1 eVault to 1 solar. If you want to have the eFlex unit, you would need 3 of these batteries per eFlex. So we designed a chart that I don't know how many people we have shared this with, but I want to kind of show you this. This is just an example of how you could size a system for a user. So if you look at this, this is an example of, okay, a basic option. If I wanted to size a system for a homeowner, what is needed? So we look at the Fortress battery offering with 1 solar. If we go to this bill of material list in the middle, you can see that 1 12 kW inverter is giving you 50 amps of critical load. These are the type of loads that you could back up with 1 inverter. If you look at the duration, it's 1 day. If you wanted to use an eFlex, going with that same mathematical principle, it will be 3 eFlex batteries to 1 solar inverter. And you could back up the same thing. And this is going off of that 2-hour design principle. So if you take this inverter, it produces 8 kW on the DC output side. So that's basically 16 kilowatt hours of energy. So 5.4 times 3 pretty much matches you right up to that 16 kW. And if you notice that this is 1-to-1 because this is 18.5 kilowatt hour of battery. Using that same analogy when I said the flow and flow management. So if you wanted to actually be online for more days, meaning you wanted to have more duration, then you would go to this next example that I'm going to show you. You would literally need 2 batteries if you wanted to be 2 days. If you wanted to be 2 days on the eFlexes, it will be 6 batteries. But again, going back to that example that I made with flow and flow management, if you put more flow, then, or if you wanted to last more days, you have to either get more buckets or more batteries. Going to what we would call the comfort option, and this gets to that 100 amp, what I was talking about, 2 more flow. This is 2 solar, so this is 100 amps. So if you want to have more critical load, you would have to add more inverter. If you add more inverter, you have to add more battery. So in this extended option, you actually can have more days of storage, but you will not get more flow because this one inverter is only giving you 50 amps of critical load. If you want more than 50 amps, then you need more than one inverter. I know I said it slow, but I want to hammer that point home because a lot of people ask that question, and I think it's just very important to know that. So going back to this chart, this minimum sizing guide is just very helpful when trying to figure out how many batteries to what inverter. This chart will help you significantly kind of decide that. So the question remains is, how much is whole house backup achievable? Is 8 kW enough? Can one 8 kW inverter really back up the whole house? The answer really is no, because when it comes to the flow side, the battery inverter, the hybrid inverter, is giving you 50 amp ampacity. So most of your air conditioners, they're going to have 40 amp batteries on them. So if you really wanted to have a whole house supplied by 8 kW inverter, and when I say 8 kW, I'm looking at the DC output of that inverter, realistically, you would need to add 2 inverters. That way you could get to 100 amps. Now, there are other ways with load management and things of that, but just to be basic, understand that the flow, the amount of things that you can put onto the system is determined by the hybrid inverter. So the hybrid inverter, one is 50 amps. The word whole house backup gets thrown around a lot, but when we're looking at energy storage, most people are not doing whole house backup. They're doing essential load or critical load backup. Again, just kind of showing you what could be on an 8 kW inverter. That sizing chart that I showed you before kind of illustrates what can be on an 8 kW inverter. So you're looking at a main bedroom, you're looking at a home entryway, kitchen, refrigerator, internet. If you really wanted a hot water heater or your air conditioning, you probably would want to add 2 inverters. Not saying that you couldn't load manage that, but on a simple mathematical principle, if you wanted to add an air conditioner, most air conditioners realistically are around 40 amps, so you would need to get more flow or more inverters. Why choose Fortress? One of the reasons why I would say choose Fortress is the superior chemistry. Our chemistry is the highest efficiency on the market, and longer lifespans, has better safety due to thermal stability, and it's more efficient. It has 98% round trip efficiency. A multiple market sector. Because of our BMS design, it allows us to scale up to 220 kilowatt hours, which allows us to go into the resi market. It also allows us to play in the light commercial market. So we are not limited to just the residential sector. Third point, we are AC coupled and DC coupled. That allows us to play in the retrofit market and in the new install market. So we play not only in residential, light commercial, we play in existing, and we play in new installs. The reason I bring that up, some of our competitors are only offering a DC couple solution, where we offer a DC couple and an AC couple solution. Point number 4, we are inverter agnostic. That gives the installers a lot of options. So if you go, and as we go in Canvas as Fortress, trying to get installers to buy into our product offering, we're not limited if an installer says, well, I don't use that inverter. Typically, what I've seen, most installers use what I would call the main inverters, your Outback, your Schneider, your Solarx, your Victrons, your SMA. So typically speaking, we're able to play. And even in those instances when it is the Solar Edge or your in-phase system, if someone wanted to AC couple, we could play in that market. What does that mean to you? It allows you to turn your inventory. It allows you to turn your inventory because there are so many markets that we play in. We can be AC coupled, we could be DC coupled. We could fit in your residential or we could fit in your light commercial. Most homes in America, if you had, generally speaking, one inverter with one eVault battery, which is our 18.5 kilowatt hour battery, you would be able to provide backup power for most homes in the case of when the grid goes down. So that allows us to play, again, in a lot of different markets because we have the chemistry. So when it comes to replacing flooded lead acid batteries, you can size a smaller system because the depth of discharge goes to 80% versus 50%. In addition to that, you can drain the batteries, as I told you, in a 2-hour window, you can drain that battery versus 10 hours. Also, because of the BMS design, again, it allows us to play in different sectors, so we can be resi or we can be light commercial. We can go in AC couple or DC couple. I know I'm reiterating that, but I want you to think about that. The other piece is that we focus on battery, which leads to product innovation. We have a couple new products that we are releasing, and one is our commercial solution, which will allow us to truly play into the light commercial market. And the other is our 400-volt battery offering that we are looking to bring out. Each one of those we're looking to have in the second half of the year. And the last value prop is our service. We believe that we offer superior service. Many times people say, hey, I can get a hold of you. I can get a hold of your application engineers. I can get a hold of, your tech support, your marketing department. I think our service is probably the #1 value that we offer because truly we are accessible. Most people that contact us or call us, you realistically will get a call back in a few hours. If not a few hours, you'll get a call back in the next day. One thing that I wanted to show you all is we have a couple programs that I didn't mention before. We have one, price changes. What are the price changes? We're not lowering our prices. We're just making it easier for you to be able to participate in stocking our products. So we have now rolled out a 5 price level. At the beginning of this year, we had noticed that having 10 batteries wasn't always feasible for some locations depending on the volume level. So now what we have done, we're rolling out a greater than 5 price. So we're allowing you to get a discount for bringing in 5 batteries. And the beautiful thing about this is you can mix and match the batteries. So 2 E-Vaults with, 3 E-Flexes, that's 3 projects. You will receive a discount. If you're able to bring in more batteries, up to 10 batteries, then you get a greater discount. But this allows you to be able to receive some discounts without having to buy such a large quantity. So this is something that we are rolling out. This is something that we will be getting in your hands. But I wanted to show it to you guys today because I know that all of you are purchasing locations. So we are now rolling out a greater than 5 pricing, which allows you to get a discount. The next thing that we're doing for the second quarter, we have a distributor program, a distributor loyalty program that we have designed to basically reward our channel partners for working with us. I know that I've shot this across to some of you guys, but here's the distributor program. And I won't go too in depth with it, but we have a gold level, we have a platinum level, and we have a diamond level. And the biggest difference that you will see that if you're on the diamond level, if you place orders greater than $45,000, you actually get free shipping on those orders. Now that program level is to our $1 million. We're looking at $1 million worth of inventory being sold throughout the year. The other thing is we will not take you off of a level, meaning that we will evaluate you throughout at the end of the year. So when we put you in a plan, whether it's the gold plan, the platinum plan, we will not downgrade you, but we're giving you an opportunity to move up. So we will be looking at this on a quarterly basis. But this is a new program that we have rolled out for this year. Another program that we rolled out to incentivize some of our install base is our installed loyalty program as well. This is a new program that we are rolling out, and this just goes through some of the benefits of being a certified Fortress Power installer. We have a platinum level, which we hope will bring more installers to CED, and we have a new process for being a certified installer. So you can be a reseller of our batteries, but if you want to be considered a certified installer, you have to complete 2 of our training classes, and then there's a subsequent test, and then you have to provide, your warranties And then we also have a $500 off your next purchase if you refer an installer and they actually buy a battery from us. The last thing that I'm gonna work with, I realize that I'm close to the time limit here. Let's see here. These are some resources. So when you get this presentation, you'll be able to click on this link and go to the resources page. Our YouTube channel has a lot of training. There's some tools for Energy Sage, that's sizing tools. You have an energy tool-based sizing tool. So those are some of the resources that we have. And thank you for your time. My contact information is here. It's Michael Gibson. And here's Alex Lepore contact information. Again, I am the eastern half of the United States sales manager, and Alex is the western half of the United States sales manager. Now I have this thing open, so if there are any questions, I believe I can see the chat, but I don't believe anybody can speak to me. But let me see here. Are there any questions? So that is the presentation. You can put it in the chat, and I will stay on here for a couple minutes if there are any questions. Okay. I don't see any questions in the chat. But that is our presentation. Again, I will be getting this in your hands so you guys can review it. But I do thank you for hopping on this presentation with CED and Fortress Power. I look forward to growing in our business and growing in our relationships. If I can be of any assistance, please don't hesitate to call me, whether it's the West Coast or the East Coast, doesn't matter. We're here to help. And thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. Oh, I see a question. Solarc is one with BMS. Let me blow this up so I can see it all the way. Give me a second so I can fully read this question. Wish this box just would blow up so I can just see it. All right, give me 1 second. Someone was asking about the Solarc. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the slide up, and hopefully this will answer your question, because I can't fully see it in my dialog box. So if we look at the Solarc system, just for sizing purposes, and I believe this is going to answer the question, if you have one Solarc inverter with one eVault battery, that's the pairing. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. For the Solarc inverter with the eFlex battery, it's basically a 1-to-3. One is closed loop communication between the eFlex and the Solarc inverter. You can go down to 2, but if you're going to use it in an open loop communication style platform, it's 1-to-3. I think that's the only question that I saw. Yes, I think that's all the questions. But again, you all will get a copy of this presentation, and I will be able to, give it to all the managers and everybody that signed on to today. I don't see any other questions, but I believe I did answer the one question that Evan had. Again, I thank you all for hopping on today, and this is going to conclude the webinar training for today. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and again, thank you for your time.